The Philadelphia Eagles are officially back in action, coming off the bye, entering Week 8, sitting at 6-0. They take on the Pittsburgh Steelers in the battle for Pennsylvania. The Battle of Wawa is greater than Sheetz. And today is Friday, and you know that means LOE3. We got 6 picks coming your way. Some player props you could bet over at betonline.net, the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. All that and more on today's edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The battle for Pennsylvania is upon us. A matchup that only happens every 4 years, but one that is held highly by all fans, most that support Penn State. And very similar outlook on college football, but very differing opinions on their National Football League teams. The Philadelphia Eagles take on their in-state rivals in the Pittsburgh Steelers at Lincoln Financial Field in Week 8. Thank you for joining us here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. I am Gino Camilleri, your host as always, and this episode is brought to you by Simply Safe Home Security with fast protection technology exclusively from Simply Safe. They have 24/7 monitoring agents capturing evidence of accurately verifying a threat for faster police response. There's no safe like Simply Safe. Visit simplysafe.com/LockedOnNFL to learn more. Thank you for joining us here as your first listen each and every day at the Locked On Eagles podcast. As I said, I'm Gino Camilleri, your host of the show. Lou DiBiase is working today, but he will be heavily invested in this Sunday's matchup where the Philadelphia Eagles take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. If you missed yesterday's show, it was a great episode with host of the Locked On Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, Chris Carter, one of the longtime friends of this show. It was a great episode with him and Lou. You could catch that on YouTube, Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, Odyssey, wherever you get your podcast as well. Make sure you smash the like and subscribe buttons. Get that word out there for our show, the best podcast in Philadelphia, covering the Philadelphia Eagles, running for over 4 years now. And thank you for joining us once again here. This only happens every 4 years. Eagles-Steelers, in-state rivalry. What is going to happen? Well, I think we have to look at the state of these two differing franchises right now. Pittsburgh, for the longest time, they were perennial powerhouses in the AFC. With Big Ben, it seemed that every year the big three quarterbacks were Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, and Ben Roethlisberger fighting for a chance to go to the Super Bowl representing the AFC. Things are a little different. This is the first time in years the Philadelphia Eagles will not be facing Ben Roethlisberger. On the other side of the ball, it's Kenny Pickett, a rookie quarterback out of Pitt, somebody that fans in Pennsylvania are pretty familiar with. We know that there's that Pitt-Penn State rivalry in-state as well, and this tends to lead itself to this in-state rivalry with the Eagles and Steelers. I don't think Kenny Pickett will get a warm welcome coming into Philadelphia, especially by the Eagles defense. What the Eagles have to do in this matchup is make sure that your quarterback in Jalen Hurts, who's performing at a fantastic level right now, he's in the top 10 in most statistics around the league. He's playing like a top 5 quarterback, somebody that you truly win because of week in and week out. He has to handle his business. And that defense, along with the fans, the 12th man on the field, don't let Kenny Pickett have any time. The Philadelphia Eagles have done a good job taking on quarterbacks that either are rookies, they're coming off the bench replacing their starter, are quarterbacks that haven't seen a playoff berth yet. They've done a good job beating those guys. If you look at that stretch last year where they took on a multitude of guys that, hey, let's just say they weren't the best, they didn't perform that well, but you know who did perform well? The Philadelphia Eagles on the other side of the football. This is going to be this first test in a stretch where You're not playing perennial powerhouses anymore. Pittsburgh is out of that category. Houston's not really in that category. Washington and Indy. There's 4 games that are on your schedule where you're favored. You're going to be favored by 10 points against Pittsburgh. You'll probably be favored by double digits in at least 2 of the 3 games remaining in this stretch. But don't let that get to their heads. Don't let the Eagles sit on their hands. You don't want them to be a team that performs either down to their talent or allows talent to perform up to a level where the Eagles shouldn't allow them to. And what I mean by that is we've seen in the past, you look at a team like the Tennessee Titans, the running joke is they're going to beat a team that you didn't expect them to beat, and they're going to lose to a team that you didn't expect them to lose to. I think back to last year when they lose to that Jets team, I believe it was with Mike White at quarterback. You're just saying the Titans are a team that's fighting for a playoff berth year over year. You can't lose a game like that. And I think that sits in the same paradigm of where the Eagles stand. You're 6-0. You just ran the table against some teams that you most likely will have to face in the NFC playoffs. You beat Minnesota. You beat Dallas. You're going to have to play Dallas yet again. You still have 2 matchups against the Giants, 1 more against Washington. You have to handle these in-conference games, and that being the ones that they played the first 6 weeks of the season outside of Jacksonville. And you also have to handle the opponents that are outside of your conference, ones that you don't play on an annual basis, not being a division opponent, not being someone in the conference that you get based on your last season's standing. So with the Saints, they're playing them because they finished in the same position as the Saints last year. But going into this year, you're playing Pittsburgh, you're playing Houston, you're once again playing the Colts, you're playing the entire AFC South, you're playing Pittsburgh because of this 17th game that they added to the schedule. You have to handle your business. You cannot allow your team to be satisfied with what happened. The NFL is a what have you done for me lately league. What are you going to do for me? And that's why you're seeing young guys get contracts. You're seeing these older veterans find their way out because it's not what have you done for in the past. Pittsburgh has done a lot in the past, right? But it's what are they doing now? They're 2-5. The Eagles are 6-0. You have to continue to play with that methodology that you are the superior team, that you have the talent to win these football games, and that you're not going to sit on your hands and allow this team to stay in this game. BetOnline.net currently has this game as the Eagles as a 10-point favorite. Double-digit favorites in the NFL don't tend to do great in these games. But the Eagles, they're a team that they don't really fit into any of these narratives that most teams around the NFL do. You look at what happened to them over the last couple of years. Most teams, they see what happens in 18, 19, 20, and then they start to rebuild and overhaul the whole thing. The Eagles are different. They came back. They made the playoffs in 2021. They're ahead of schedule here in 2022. Now, with an NFC that's wide freaking open, you have to take advantage of these games. Win the games that you're supposed to. Handle the opponents that you're supposed to. But at the same time, Nick Sirianni knows how dangerous a 2-5 football team can be, especially one that's coached by Mike Tomlin, somebody that's been around forever. He's one of the longest tenured coaches in the National Football League. That organization has trust in him. He trusts all the players that he has. He's tied to Kenny Pickett now. He wants to get this team going in the right direction. No, they might not be a playoff team this year, but they still want to get back to Pittsburgh Steelers football. They have good talent on the defensive side of the ball. On offense, you still have to worry about Najee Harris. You have to worry about those wide receivers. But the Eagles, we know that they have the horses to run in any race and keep up with any opponent in the National Football League. And that's what they're going to have to do. In segment 2, before we get into segment 3, where we go into LOE3, I want to revisit the 2008 season. The last time the Philadelphia Eagles played the Pittsburgh Steelers and had a chance to play them twice in a season, and that would have been in the Super Bowl. I have a take on that I stick firmly by, and I want to revisit that. But before we do that, we have a message from our friends over at Simply Safe, the presenting sponsor of the show today. Let me present you with a scenario. Here's a sports analogy for you. When it comes to burglars in your home, that's like the end zone for them. They want to score. They want to get the big prize. You need the strongest defense. You need a Jordan Davis, somebody to shut things down. This is why I trust Simply Safe Home Security. At Simply Safe, your safety is the only thing that matters. It's cutting-edge technology powered by 24/7 professional monitoring agents who also always have your back, just like head coach Nick Sirianni, so you always know that your home is safe. There's one night I wake up, my front door is wide open. I don't know who touched it, but I'm sure there was somebody on the other end of that, and I forgot to lock the door. But thank you to Simply Safe. They alerted me right away. They contact your phone. They have all the security cameras set up. It's instant talking from your alarm system to Simply Safe. They're monitoring 24/7, and they'll call you. That's going to be the best call that you get at any time. Somebody that you know has your back. Simply Safe blankets your home with protection with advanced sensors for every room, window, and door. HD security cameras for inside and outside your home. Smarter ways to detect motion that only alert you when the threat is real. I have dogs in my house. They know that that's not a threat, so they will only alert you when that threat is real. So today, you could go and customize the perfect security system for your home, or the perfect defense, as one would say. One with a Jordan Davis, a Darius Slay, James Bradbury. Nobody's getting in your house with that type of protection. Go to simplysafe.com/LockedOnNFL. You'll save 20%. That's 20% on your Simply Safe security system when you sign up for an interactive monitoring plan, and you get your first month for free. Visit simplysafe.com/LockedOnNFL to learn more. There's no safe like Simply Safe. All right, everybody, welcome on back to Locked On Eagles, the final episode of this week. I'm your host, Gino Camilleri. You can find me on Twitter at GC24_football. Follow my co-host at DiBiase LOE. Follow the mothership at Locked On Birds. Find us wherever you get your podcasts. Odyssey, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud. Make sure you write a message to us, write a review, give us a 5-star review. Make sure you smash subscribe and follow us in video form on YouTube as well. Please subscribe to YouTube. It helps get those numbers up, helps get our podcast out there. And if you've been listening to us for nearly 1,000 episodes, we're approaching 1,000 episodes as a duo. Please get that message out to all of the people who support the Birds. And thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. For your second listen of the day, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. The biggest stories, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available wherever you get your shows on Odyssey app and YouTube as well. So we are revisiting this Pittsburgh Steelers versus Philadelphia Eagles matchup. We're just a few days away from seeing them play for the first time in nearly 4 years and seeing them once again beat the Pittsburgh Steelers in Lincoln Financial Field, something that hasn't happened, I don't think, since 1965. They have allowed them to win in Philadelphia. They cannot allow that to happen this week. And I want to revisit 2008. Let's take a step back. Philadelphia Eagles take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. I believe it's week 3. Ben Roethlisberger is sacked 8 times. The Pittsburgh Steelers as a whole were sacked 9 times in that game. The Philadelphia Eagles win 15-6. Now, why is this important? If you think back, what happened in the 2008 season? Well, the Philadelphia Eagles got hot. They got hot late, got hot down the stretch, start winning all these playoff games. They beat Minnesota, they beat the Giants, and then they're in a game against Arizona where they have a chance to go and play the Pittsburgh Steelers. So to bring this full circle, I've said on this take for quite some time, I'm nearly positive that this is exactly what would have happened if the Eagles hold on and beat the Arizona Cardinals. In my heart of hearts, I believe that the Philadelphia Eagles would have won the Super Bowl in 2008 against the Pittsburgh Steelers had they beaten the Arizona Cardinals. And I want to revisit that Week 3 matchup. How many times did Ben Roethlisberger get sacked? I said this just a couple seconds ago. 8. That defense was pretty freaking good at that point. They got home to an offensive line that ended up winning the Super Bowl, a quarterback that ended up winning the Super Bowl and only allowed them to score 6 points the entire game. The way the Eagles were playing in that stretch, down the road, winning those games to get into the playoffs, being the 6th seed, winning 2 playoff games, and potentially beating Arizona. They had the lead late in that game. Kurt Warner was the guy of destiny. But if the Eagles win, I think Big Ben has another bad performance in the Super Bowl. I think the Eagles once again get to Big Ben, and their defense wins them a championship. I have sat on this for years. I continue to believe that that's exactly what would have happened in that game. And to look at how good the Eagles were in that run, it felt like a team of destiny for a bit. It felt like 2017, just a little bit less because they didn't get there. But to be a 6th seed, to upset a division opponent in the playoffs, to beat Minnesota in the playoffs, and then almost beat Arizona, who represented the NFC in the Super Bowl, taking on Pittsburgh, who you had success against earlier that year. I don't know. I firmly believe that the Eagles could have came out on top in a battle for Pennsylvania Super Bowl. That would have a lot of rooting interest in PA. It would be quite interesting to see how the fans react. I wish there was an alternate universe that I could see that game have taken place. I would have liked to seen the result. Maybe I could go back in Madden 08 and simulate it. But to say that the Eagles wouldn't have done what they did earlier that year, where they got to the quarterback as much as they did, as often as they did in that game, I think the Eagles could have done it. I think the results speak for themselves. It was less than 4 calendar months removed from when they played Pittsburgh earlier that year. It's the last year of guys like B-Doc. He's out of town after that. How special things were to potentially get back to that point. That would have been one heck of a Super Bowl. It was. Santonio Holmes, we all know that catch over Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie to end that game. It was a fantastic matchup. We know the James Harrison rundown from Larry Fitzgerald. It was great overall. But I think the Eagles hoisting that Lombardi trophy in 2009 in the 2008 season would have been something. Let's hope that this 6-0 run, starting with a win over the Pittsburgh Steelers coming off the bye, can be the turn of something special. And talk about trying to turn things around. That's exactly what Lou and I are doing over at LOE3. It's Friday, and we're back again with 6 picks. Coming off of a poor Week 6, we collected our thoughts. We're back after the bye. We got 6 picks to hopefully make you some money, presented by betonline.net. But before we do that, we have a message from our friends over at BetterHelp. Let me tell you about BetterHelp, folks. I myself and my co-host Lou, we're 2 kids from Western New York that have lived most of our life with anxiety, depression, all of these thoughts in our heads that are just crazy. But BetterHelp is one place that we have gone to truly change how our minds work. Your brain is a scary thing, but it is also a beautiful thing. Our friends over at BetterHelp, they've helped me out in ways that I can't even explain. So what do? They give you a therapist that you could talk to at any given time. They give you somebody that you could turn to in moments where you don't know what's going on. You're uncertain. You don't trust yourself. You don't believe in yourself. Well, there's always somebody that will believe in you. And our friends over at BetterHelp are there to help. So we're going to help you out today. Go to betterhelp.com/lockedon to get 10% off of your first month. I can't recommend this enough. BetterHelp, you could talk to somebody at any given time, 24/7. It's easy to accomplish your goals. Maybe you just want somebody to chat to. Maybe you seriously are in need of a way forward. I've been there. Lou has been there. We're here to help. BetterHelp.com/lockedon will get you exactly what you need. It'll take 10% off your first month. It's convenient, accessible, affordable, and entirely online. You don't need to show your face if you don't need to. I'm one of those people. I like to do it behind a screen, but you still need somebody there to help you when things do get rough. So go to BetterHelp.com today/lockedon to take 10% off of your BetterHelp and a better way forward. All right, everybody, finishing up Friday's show. This is Gino Camilleri, host of the Locked On Eagles podcast. It's Steelers week, matchup we don't see that often, one that has heavy rooting interest in the state of Pennsylvania. Only less than a 6-hour drive between Pittsburgh and Philly. Obviously, you're in PA. You don't even have to go out of state to watch this matchup. But if you want to watch it, go down to Lincoln Financial Field. Get yourself some tickets. This one is going to be a fun one. And you can also have an increased rooting interest if you put in some player props presented by our friends over at betonline.net. We're back off of the bye week. Things weren't so great to start the season with Lou and I. We started to get a little better. I got to even at one point. Lou got close to even. Things have taken a little downturn. We're down collectively 6 units as a show. So let's say you bet $10. Every time that you bet, we're down around $60. Hopefully we can get you back with a perfect 6-0 this week. Starting at Lou, he's going with Hurts over 227 passing yards, which is at -112. Pittsburgh does not have the best pass defense in the NFL. They're allowing over 275 yards per game to opposing quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts has been throwing at a rate that is unseen in his career. The sustainability, the success rate that he has been throwing at is one that you hope to continue to improve down the stretch. There's still work to be done in that department. And I think Pittsburgh's a great place to get back on track, taking on this defense, which allows a lot of yards in the air. Lou is sticking with the passing game as he has 2 player props that are based on head-to-heads. He has A.J. Brown with more receiving yards than Deontay Johnson, and Devontae Smith with more receiving yards than George Pickens. I think those are both safe bets. Looking at what the Eagles have in terms of corners versus what Pittsburgh has in terms of their corners, how successful the Eagles have been, not allowing yards in the air in big moments, situationally late in games. Yeah, they've let things slip a little bit, but for the most part, during the game, during the important parts where it is close, the Eagles don't allow a ton of yards in the air. James Bradbury and Darius Slayer, 2 of the top 5 corners in terms of not allowing catches their way. They just pick off the ball every time it's thrown at them, it seems. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and Marcus Epps have been playing at a high level. Avonte Maddox should be back to his full self. So in terms of guys like Deontay Johnson and George Pickens, those are going to be the 2 that you got to focus on. Chase Claypool will be the 3rd. But it's hard to stop A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Teams haven't found a way to do it. So go ahead, Pittsburgh. Best of luck to you in that department. I, myself, continue to roll with Hurts. I'm going to be a prove me wrong, and then I'll change type of guy with Jalen. I'm going with Jalen Hurts over passing yards ahead of Kenny Pickett. I don't think Pickett surpasses 200 in this game. I believe that Hurts goes well over 200, maybe even over 250 in this matchup. That's sitting at -148. Yeah, you're going to have to give up a little to get some money back, but who do you trust more, Jalen Hurts or Kenny Pickett? Right now, I trust Jalen Hurts 20 times out of 10 in that department. I also have Jalen Hurts with an anytime rushing touchdown. Just seems to be a lock week in and week out. If they get within a yard, they're going to be going QB sneak heavy. He's somebody that just puts the team on his back, has had big yard runs for touchdowns where he's putting his head down, driving his feet after picking up 10-plus yards and punching that thing into the end zone. I think it's safe at -126 that Jalen Hurts will be crossing the end zone line and celebrating with another rushing touchdown in this week. The final pick for this week, I have Devontae Smith over 55 receiving yards at minus 114. Devontae Smith had a big week 6. They weren't able to really shut him down. You look at the week before that, he had an even bigger week. Devontae Smith is just somebody that it's just tough to cover. Regardless of where he lines up, inside, outside, Devontae Smith gets open. A lot has been removed from that week 1 where people were saying, is Devontae Smith going to get upset that he didn't have a lot of target share? Well, you've seen what he has done. He has come back with a vengeance. He's skinny Batman. He's doing things right, getting open inside the slot, outside the slot, two-way goes, getting the ball in the backfield, picking up yards after the catch, winning 50-50 balls. The guy really does it in every facet. So that's the 6 that we're rolling with this week. Let's hope we get a perfect 6-0 week. That would be a great way to fully hand it to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Just go in there, punch them in the mouth in Lincoln Financial Field. It's a big week for Philadelphia sports. The World Series is happening now. The Philadelphia Phillies are taking on the Houston Astros, and this is a week starting with the Eagles on Sunday, beating Pittsburgh, and then going into Thursday night football, taking on Houston. You couldn't write this. You could not write this for Philadelphia fans. They're taking on the Astros. They're taking on the Texans. 2 Houston teams in a single week. That would be great, but don't overlook the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is a matchup, a well-coached team in Mike Tomlin, a young and up-and-coming quarterback in Kenny Pickett that has the reins of that ship, multiple young wide receivers that have been doing well in their young careers in the National Football League, a defense that has guys like Minkah Fitzpatrick, guys that can get to the quarterback, guys that are going to play gap-sound football. You have to go out there and just do your assignment, do your job, execute, and do not take stupid penalties. If they take penalties and get behind the ball, this is going to be one of those matchups where you might be saying, what could have been? Don't leave meat on the bone. Go out there, execute, execute, execute. This is the week of all weeks to go and do that. But that'll do it for this week here at the Locked On Eagles podcast. Thank you for joining us for yet another week. We are well over 975 episodes, on our way to 1,000. We are getting close to that 1K mark as a duo. So thank you for making the Locked On Eagles podcast your first listen each and every day. So for your second listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. From the games that matter to the biggest stories in sports, they go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights on Locked On Sports Today on the Locked On Podcast Network, wherever you can get your podcast, YouTube, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud. Check us out at Locked On Eagles. Just put it in your Google search bar. They will pop up with both of our Twitter accounts, our YouTube page, anything that you could find on the show. Just do a little Google search. It'll pop up. We've been around forever. Make sure you like, subscribe, and review the show wherever you get your episodes. Follow us on Twitter at GC24_football. At DiBiase LOE is my co-host. And follow the mothership at Locked On Birds, and also follow every other sports podcast. Make sure all of our Philly fans are checking out the Locked On Phillies podcast all of this week and when they hoist that World Series trophy. Let's hope the Eagles can hoist up a W come Sunday as they take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. But for now, at the Locked On Eagles podcast, that'll do it. Thank you for downloading. Thank you for watching, subscribing, and listening. I'm your host, Gino Camilleri. Signing off for now. As always, fly Eagles fly.